Hi everyone, my name is Erna Sif Arnardóttir, and today we're going to talk about sleep hygiene. These are the different things we do that affect our abilities to sleep and sleep well. So we're going to talk today about these different sleep hygiene measures so that you can recount them, discuss them, and evaluate them in the future assignments that we are doing, and this relates also to different parts down the road of this course. I recommend taking a look at this paper, which is in the recommended reading. This is a review paper that has been looking at the different sleep hygiene rules for the general population or non-clinical adult population. So there are all sorts of magic solutions out there for sleeping better, and I just have a few examples here. This ring, for some reason, when you put on this ring, which kind of looks like a wedding ring with a small knob on the inside, when you put this on, apparently you stop snoring and you don't have sleep apnea anymore. And this actually was sold out in Iceland a few years ago, and it costed some 20 euros, one of these rings, and a lot of people were buying it. We also have a lot of these over-the-counter vitamins and minerals, etc., that supposedly help us to sleep. And then if you go online and look at the evidence for the effectiveness of these, there is typically very little studies behind them. There is one that is starting to be validated and analyzed. But if you are looking at studies, the only way to know that a certain tablet of this kind is affecting sleep is to do a randomized controlled trial where you give half of the people a tablet which has the active ingredient and the other half get a placebo. So there's nothing inside the tablet, but they get a tablet nonetheless. So they don't know if they're getting the active ingredient or not. And then you look at the changes that happen. And typically, unfortunately, this has not been done for most of these over-the-counter tablets. So just be aware when you're looking at things that this may not be the solution. And the first solution is always to look at sleep hygiene before we start doing any of these things. One very important thing is a good sleeping environment. It should be relatively cool. If it's too warm, we get less deep sleep and less sleep quality. It shouldn't be cold nonetheless. Sometimes there's a fixed degree, like 18 degrees, but for some people this may be too cold. So it really is a personal feeling. If you are very cold in your fingers and toes, it's very hard to sleep. You may have had that experience yourself, so you need to find the balance, but relatively cool. It should be dark. We'll go into that in a bit, why that is. Quiet, so you're not being disturbed. Comfortable bed, of course. And not have any electronic devices that are beeping in the middle of the night. It is amazing how many people are allowing their phone on their bedside table to disturb them during the night by not turning off all of their notifications. One important thing in our modern society is the use of smartphones and other electronic devices, especially in the evening, last 1 to 2 hours before bed. So the blue light that comes from these devices directly into our eyes, this is stopping the melatonin production. And melatonin is only produced in darkness. And when we are using these devices, we're basically telling our eyes and our brain that it's daytime, not nighttime. So there are studies showing that you can both make the sleep latency, the time it takes you to fall asleep, longer by using these devices in the last couple of hours before sleep, and you can have less sleep quality as measured by deep sleep quantity. Another thing that is in our modern society is quite huge is caffeine. So it's both the timing of caffeine. It's of course especially bad when you have caffeine in the evening, but any time after lunch can have a negative effect on your sleep because the half-life of caffeine in our blood. So this is the time, let's say you drink 1 cup of coffee with 100 milligrams of caffeine. And it's the time from when this goes from 100 milligrams to 50 milligrams. This is the half-life of the caffeine. And this takes 4 to 8 hours. So let's say you have a cup of coffee at 4 o'clock, then at 10, 11, there is still 50 milligrams of that caffeine circulating in your blood, and it may still be affecting your sleep. Also, the total quantity overall, you can look at the European Food Safety Authority recommendations, put down the website there. For the typical adult, you should only drink between 200 to 400 milligrams a day of caffeine for long-term consumption. If you start going over some 700-800 milligrams a day, you can end up in the hospital with basically caffeine poisoning when you're feeling very nauseous, racing heart, etc. And we know this is happening to a lot of young people, which they're not realizing how much caffeine they are taking in using with all of these energy drinks that are out there, especially when you go for these strong ones, which have 180 milligrams in one of these cans. Then you can very quickly reach the maximum level. There is a difference for caffeine depending on your genotype. So some people are more sensitive for caffeine than others. But people should definitely, if they're having difficulties falling asleep in the evening or they feel their sleep could be better, it's one of the things you should always try. It's to reduce the amount of caffeine. You need to do that slowly, but reduce the amount of caffeine and make sure the timing is more in the morning, maybe 1 cup after lunch or one drink, and then no more for the day. And then you can see if there's a change. Caffeine, I wanted to show you the mechanism behind the caffeine consumption. Arnardóttir has already talked about the role of adenosine for sleep. And here we can see, this is done in the cat basal forebrain. You can see the accumulation of adenosine during prolonged waking, that there is an increase, and the adenosine is signaling to your body that we need sleep. But when you have caffeine, you're basically blocking the signaling of the adenosine. You can see this here in these three figures. In the first one, you can see the adenosine accumulating in during wakefulness. And then when we are in slow wave sleep, deep sleep, you can see that it's being taken up into the cells and destroyed. But when you have caffeine, this is going into the receptor. So the adenosine cannot enter the receptor to basically tell our brain that we need sleep. The caffeine blocks this reception, and then we don't get the same signal for sleep as we would without the caffeine. Of course, this doesn't work forever, and as Arnardóttir went into, there are more signaling pathways in the brain for sleep, but there is this is how the caffeine is blocking our sleepiness. Another thing that we can do if we have, especially for those who have difficulties falling asleep in the evening, this can be because of insomnia, anxiety, stress, is to do relaxation and or meditation. It can be very simple things like this on the figure, where you count from 1 to 7 while you breathe in slowly, and then you breathe out, counting from 1 to 11. And typically you would breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. You can also use any of these apps. So you can use the phone to help with sleep if you're not looking at the screen. So for example, you can have these apps where you have a guided meditation. Some people like to listen to podcasts, radio talks, or books where someone is reading for you, and this helps you relax. Stop thinking about the fact that you should be sleeping and people are getting nervous about not sleeping, but rather just relaxing and allowing your brain to shut off and go into sleep, because we can't force our brain to go to sleep. And this is something that is really good to know for people who are struggling with sleep, and is one of the things that is taught in insomnia treatment, as will be gone over in one of the later sections. And this is when you're lying in bed, and I'm sure you have all experienced this, when you have something stressful the next day, going to an exam or something, and you're basically rolling around in bed, you keep checking the clock, and you're thinking, oh my God, tomorrow is going to be horrible, I have to sleep, why can't I sleep, and you're getting nervous about this. And interestingly, the best thing you can do in this, when you reach this state, and you've tried the relaxation and meditation, whatever works best for you, the best thing to do is to get out of bed. And you just go into the living room, wherever in the house where you feel comfortable, and you do something relaxing. You read a book, or some people even like ironing shirts. It doesn't really matter what you do, as long as it's relaxing. Preferably it's not the TV or any screen activity. But something that takes your mind off not being able to sleep. And if you feel sleepy again, and it's very likely you will, then you go back into bed. And Erla Björnsdóttir will talk more about this in the insomnia talks. But try it if you have difficulties not sleeping. Another thing that is very important is to know how to nap. So either just not nap at all and just sleep during the night. This is the best thing to do. Or if you need to take a nap, then we need to take it correctly. And this means not taking the long afternoon nap, sleeping for 2 to 3 hours. It's not falling asleep over the TV, but rather than taking the so-called power nap, which is around 20 minutes and typically not too late in the day. If you think about the way how the adenosine was accumulating during the day and letting us to be more and more sleepy, this represents the sleep drive. And as soon as you take a nap, you are reducing the sleep drive. And if you, for example, take a 2-hour nap in the afternoon, it's very likely you will have a hard time falling asleep at 11 that evening. If you had not taken the nap, it would have been much easier to fall asleep. And then this can become a vicious cycle where you take a nap for 2 hours, can't fall asleep in the evening, have to wake up for school or work next morning, and then you take a nap again. And the same can happen over the weekend. So, for example, if you sleep until noon on a Sunday, it's very unlikely you can fall asleep at the right time on Sunday evening to be fresh on Monday morning for school or work. And you can see this also with kids. When if you have a kid in kindergarten and people are driving them home, they're tired, they fall asleep even just for 10 minutes in the backseat of the car, then it can be very hard to get them to bed that evening. So the best way to counteract this is to do just a short power nap if you need some extra sleep, and typically around lunchtime, not too late in the day, that is, so that you can still get your night's sleep. And how can you improve your sleep? There are different things you can do aside from what we talked about so far. For example, we can reduce light exposure in the evening, thinking about melatonin production. And we can increase light exposure in the morning. So this is to help the circadian system to really kickstart the day correctly. It is morning, it is daytime, there's light, and then there's night, and that there is nighttime. So that there needs to be a more clear distinction between daytime and nighttime. And in the way we live today, when there's indoor lighting all the time, we're basically giving our body mixed signals about when it is daytime and nighttime. There are, in some cases, people don't have light exposure in the morning. There's no natural light. For example, if you live in Iceland in December, the sun only rises at 11 in the morning. And what we can do then is to use something like this picture on the far right. This is a 10,000 lux light. It's an approved medical device for something called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. These are people who feel depressed and tired, very tired during the wintertime because of the lack of light, and also for people who have delayed sleep times. So people who always go to sleep very late in the night and wake up closer to, for example, noon. And you can use this to push the circadian rhythm so that you are able to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier. One thing more is this so-called wake-up light that people have been. This is available now in stores from many different companies. This light is not strong enough to really affect the circadian system. So, for example, this is not a medical device that would change your sleep timing. This is more for people who have a lot of difficulty waking up in the morning, and then this imitates the sunrise. So slowly but surely, there is more and more light coming there. And it can help people wake up in the morning in a nicer way. But there's much less research behind the use of this compared to this 10,000 lux lights, which are truly validated and researched. So there are different tools you can use to help. You can either use something like the screen that was there before, so it's like a tablet with a light on. Some people prefer something like these glasses, which has a dot that is just directed to the eyes of blue light that goes then directly into the eyes. So you could basically wear this while you're driving in the morning or having breakfast or whatever to give you morning light. And you can also use blue blocking glasses in the evening. So if you have to be using screens, or there is, like in Iceland in the summer, there's still a lot of sunlight in the 10, 11 in the evening. And then you use these blue blocking glasses to block out the light. There are many different versions out there, and there are studies showing that the ones that truly work are the ones that when you put them on, the environment becomes a bit orangey or red. If there's no change in the colors, it's not likely to be clinically effective. And this is quite exciting for the next few years and our future, is that there is a lot of changes in the lighting in offices and workspaces, in schools, hospitals, etc. And this is always becoming cheaper and cheaper, that we have proper lighting instead of this kind of dim light from morning till night, that we could theoretically now start programming the light indoors where we are living most of our days, or many of us, so that you get strong blue light in the morning, and then you would get more red, softer light in the evening to help us with the sleep. So, how can I improve my sleep? Are you sleeping too little? Are you under the 7 to 9 hour recommendation? You can, for example, try adding 15 to 30 minutes of sleep at a time. Typically, we can't add it in the morning because we have to get up at a fixed time. So maybe start going to bed 15 minutes earlier. Do that for a week. If you feel better, add another 15 minutes and find your best, the best version of you with how much sleep. Are you sleeping at irregular hours? This is also extremely important, to have similar times of going to bed in the evening and waking up in the morning, because as we talked about before, as you start sleeping until noon on Sunday, you are disturbing the sleep for the next night. This also affects the deep sleep. So if you go to sleep very late one night, you will get less deep sleep than you do on the normal nights. So it is quite important to have a good schedule. Think about caffeine consumption, anything after lunch, afternoon naps, dozing over TV. Alcohol is another thing that is very important. Some people have a nightcap because it helps them relax, and they think it then helps them sleep. But the opposite is true, unfortunately. So any alcohol consumption is negatively affecting our sleep. And think about avoiding computers, tablets, smartphones, and even TV, even though this is less researched, the last 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. And rather, so you need to find another routine, and this can be very difficult for people. I've had thousands of students that I've asked this question if they are using their tablets or smartphones before bed, and almost all of them say yes. And even after they've taken a sleep course with me, they're still using it because this is so convenient. It's a part of their lifestyle, and they just don't really want to not have the phone on them. So you really need to think about something else you can do and are willing to do instead of having these electronic devices. Other things are like the timing of exercise. Exercise is, of course, great for sleep, but you need to think about the timing. So if you start exercising strenuously, doing very hard exercise late at night, this will delay your sleep time. You can rather do something light or exercise earlier in the evening or during the daytime. And people who exercise very early in the morning, for example, professional swimmers who need to wake up and are going to exercise at 5, 6 in the morning, this may reduce your sleep length because it may be very hard for you to fall asleep at the right time. Say you have to fall asleep then at 10 to wake up at 5. And if you are a night owl, this can be very hard for you. Food intake is also very important, and the current advice recommends that we abstain from food the last 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. And of course, we should especially stay away from any caffeine, sugary content that is affecting our blood sugar. But it's also to have a heavy meal at this time. So if you have anything in these last 2 to 3 hours, it should be something healthy and light. If we summarize this, to be able to wake up early, we need the signal of light, bright light, not just the regular bulb in your office or school. So sunlight or these devices that imitate the sunlight, typically white light, 10,000 lux. And it can help to do exercise in the morning, but not super early. But exercising in the morning may be helpful to have a routine and this circadian rhythm body clock. But if you want to stay up late, you should drink a lot of caffeine, take an afternoon nap, go running late in the evening, and use your phone in bed. I can assure you it will be very hard for you to fall asleep if you do this. Finally, as the assignment, consider your own sleep now. We will do assignments where you are working on your own sleep, considering the sleep hygiene. So note this down and think about how can you improve your own sleep hygiene. How would you do it? How would you prioritize? We wouldn't recommend doing too many things at once, but are there things you can do, and what are those things? So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you will all sleep better after listening to this talk.